Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm LeTonya Moore, and this is Real Perspectives. Today's show, we're going to have a real talk show, and the name of the show today is Rising Above the Scars. We have Dr. Johnnetta McSwain, who you guys know actually wrote the book about rising above the scars. We also have Mr. Ronald Hatcher. He is with an organization called They Can't Talk, But We Can. And we have who everyone knows, the
Yes.
Team Oz leader, Commissioner Oz Nesbitt, Rockdale County Commissioner Oz Nesbitt. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Good
Glad
to
to
be
be
here.
here.
Good to be here
Glad
this
to be
morning.
here.
Okay. Today's topic is, although a very heavy topic, it is certainly very necessary. We're going to be talking specifically about the effects of child abuse, but we're also going to be talking about some ways that people like our elected officials and these advocates that we have, they're going to give us some tools and tips to recognize abuse and also some ways that you can help to eradicate that. And so we're really just I am honored to have you guys. I mean, Dr. McSwain, you know, I always love to have you as part of the show.
Thank you. I'd love to be here.
So, Mr. Hatcher, we're going to actually start with you. So tell us how and why you became a child abuse advocate for special needs children. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay, well, it all started, I would say, well, we didn't know about it around 2006. And my son, Aaron Hatcher, he was allegedly abused. I have to say that because we're still in litigation. And he was allegedly abused along with 6 other kids. And they were all special needs. So this particular teacher, when she would throw him out of the wheelchair. She passed gas in their face. She slammed some of them against the wall in the schools. And so when I went one day to the school just to visit, and I noticed that he was in a room locked in. I mean, well, he was in a room and it was slightly closed. And I heard him kind of murmuring, so I just kind of followed it. And so that's when I got upset. Now, at this time, we didn't know anything about any type of abuse. Now, I didn't find out until he was abused again in the same school district, Fulton County. And this particular abuse, the teacher placed a makeshift device made out of a back brace on his neck because Aaron was growing this way. And she forced him to look toward her. And so when this happened, I found out about this, but I didn't find out about the 2006, all of that, until after he passed, because I noticed that he had bruises on him during the second abuse, and so I did a little research. And when I found out, I went to the school one day and I caught this thing on his neck, and I took the picture. And so that's when everything started. And that's the reason I started the organization, because at that time, Aaron, this abuse, the second abuse plus the first abuse, it led to his demise. And so I just couldn't take it. I had a heart attack. I mean, when this particular parent told me about it, she met me after he had passed away. And she said, I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you. She gave me a stack of papers where it was a covered up investigation. And I saw my child's name, and I saw when he was thrown out of the wheelchair. I saw I listened to some of the covered up tapes that they had because she sent everything to me. And at that point, my body shut down and I had open heart surgery and all of that. So when I came to 5 days after the open heart surgery, I started the organization. And this is where I am now. And yes.
Wow,
And I've
that's
been,
really a heartbreaking story because
yes,
child abuse, I mean, quite frankly, is just disgusting. Period. And that I don't have a problem saying that. But when you talk about a special needs child and a situation, because you mentioned that your son was in a wheelchair, could you
yes.
share with us just a little bit about his particular condition? Because there are a lot of conditions, for
Okay.
example, that would put a child in a wheelchair. I really want our viewers to understand the magnitude of your son's condition and really what, you know, this alleged abuse that happened?
Well, Aaron couldn't walk, couldn't talk. He was just like a baby. I mean, he kind of would communicate with his eyes, or he would kind of like, or he couldn't really do what a normal child would be able to do. And so, for whatever reason, he was thrown out of the wheelchair or abused. I couldn't even tell you. And with Aaron, I mean, he wasn't a he would only way he would cry if something was going on. So he would cry all the time, but we didn't know what, because he couldn't tell us. And so that's the difference, because some special need kids, like the other kids, they were able to walk, but they couldn't talk. But Aaron's he was wheelchair bound. He couldn't hit you, he couldn't say anything to you, he just couldn't tell you
Okay,
anything.
so let me ask you this, and I understand if there's anything that we ask, or if there's anything that comes up that you can't speak about with regard, because of the pending litigation, we certainly understand.
Yes.
But in your opinion, and if you can share with us, what are some systems that you believe were possibly put in place or not put in place that led to this particular situation with your son, Aaron?
Cameras in the classroom. That's what we're doing now. And I would say cameras in the classroom. Definitely not for all, but just for the ones that can't talk. Because you never know. I mean, even in our situation, we used to go to the school and they would laugh and, oh, hi, Mr. Hatcher. And I would hug them, and then they would beat my child. So I would say cameras in the classroom for kids that are not able to walk or talk, because some of the kids, I mean, if you're able, some cerebral palsy or muscular dystrophy, you can pretty much talk. You kind of slow or something like that. But I would say cameras in the classroom. And then another thing that after you know what's going on and you have the information, you have the tapes of all the 32 people, administrators, telling what was going on, but you're not doing anything about it, and then you get immunity. That's the next step that we're working on to change. So if we can change or amend the immunity law, because right now, according to my situation, she did it in good faith. So I don't know.
Are you talking about the person that abused your child? The position of the other side is that she acted in good faith by slamming your wheelchair bound son to the floor?
Yes, we were told that in court. We were told that I don't understand why these kids, why the parents, because they see we were dressed up, so they didn't know if we were parents or teachers or what, because we would come early. So the judge said, I don't understand why these parents are even doing this, because I had a police officer who stopped a female to give her a ticket, and he raped her, and I let him go because of immunity law. So I'm saying that to say that the immunity law protects the government officials, well, educators, and I just think we got to do something after we finish the cameras. We got to do something to make it better, not just for special needs kids. That's for all of us, because and I believe in immunity law, especially if I'm coming after you and then you're doing what you can to stop me. But for Aaron this was what they told us. Well, because he was crying, he was only crying because they broke his hip, but because he was crying, this is why we had to lock him in the room, and this is why she did this in good faith, because he was bothering the other
Wow.
kids. So
Wow. I want to I want to go so many places with that, but I'll tell you what I won't. I won't, and I'll tell you why. Because the attorney in me is just screaming. Like I mean, if if you guys had a transcript of what is going on in my head, I'm just so appalled by this. But what I want to do, though, I want to get Commissioner Nesbitt to speak to some of these things, because first of all, Commissioner Nesbitt is a former police officer, and certainly is very well versed in immunity within the context of under color of law, and within the context of you are covered by immunity when you are acting within the scope of your employment. Now, I won't go too far into that, because then it'll turn into a civil rights show, which is what we're not talking about.
Yes.
But also, part of Commissioner Nesbitt's present platform, he is running for office. I'll let him talk a little bit, about that as he sees fit. But part of his platform is really pulling together a community relationship between law enforcement, in addition to some other county functions, and the community. And so I think this is something that would be really great. So, Commissioner, talk a little bit about not just this situation specifically, but just what he's brought up with regard to this situation in schools.
Well, first of all, not just the fact that I was a former police officer for 15 years, but I'm a parent. I'm a person. Okay, I'm father of 4 children, but my wife and I, we have a blended family, and I don't have any special need children in my family, but I have friends and people in my community who have special need children. Mr. Hatcher is a friend of mine. I've heard his story on several occasions. I can identify with what's going on. So let me just put the real person part of it out there first. I'm a parent. I'm a person who can identify what I'm listening to and what I'm being reminded that this educator, this school teacher, this person, this guardian inside the school facility took full advantage of this young man's situation and his inability to be able to talk and communicate and articulate whatever was going on wrong with him. We can stop at the point of I'm going to call it a body slam or a wheelchair slam, or whatever the incident that caused this kid to be thrown to the ground or tossed to the ground sitting in his wheelchair. What went through the mind of this individual to pull them or push them to the point of doing such a thing for no just cause, no reason? I'm sitting here, there's nothing in my mind, my faculty, that can come up with a reason as to why this happened. That's one thing. My relationship with what's happening in my community in Rockdale County is, number one, through the county commissioner's office, to do all I can to build a partnership with the local school system, the local school superintendent, and our parents. We have 16,556 students enrolled in Rockdale County Public Schools. Well, the level of parental involvement is just non-existent. When you think about the pie being sliced in terms of tax dollars going to the 3 main entities in my community, the Board of Commissioners office, the City Council, the Mayor's office, and the school system, which receives the largest majority of the tax dollars, then parents should be more involved with what's going on in our public schools. And here's the other point. Whether you have a student or a young person enrolled in public schools or not, guess what you're doing? You're paying taxes. You're paying for it anyway. So you should have a say, a voice in terms of, number one, where your money is going, and that we're getting quality care and quality education for our young people. So there's a gap. There's a disconnect in terms of what's happening in county government, or perhaps in some communities, city government, with what's happening in our local schools, whether it's a county school or city school, or even if it's a private owned and operated facility in terms of an educational institution. Parents need to be involved. So what I want to do going forward is to help in every way that I can to bridge that gap, to join forces as much as I can with the local school system to advocate on getting more parents involved in their children's or their child's education. And we can, by being more involved, you can detect, you can pick up on some of this stuff. I don't negate the fact that I heard Mr. Hatcher say that he was involved. He did have a relationship with the school. He talked about he'd go up there, meet and greet with teachers and school officials and administrators and embrace them and hug them. And all the while, this was going on right before his eyes, so to speak. But I believe that cameras in those classrooms, I spent 3 years working in the Rockdale County Public School System as the in-school suspension coach, okay? So I was the ISS guy. I was the school jail, so to speak, okay? And we were averaging anywhere from 35 to 45 young people in a classroom per day in a population of about 1,400 students. Well, I realized then, having been raised in public housing, having come from the streets, having spent 15 years in law enforcement, now I'm dealing with young people my size or Mr. Hatcher's size or the size of these two beautiful women sitting to the right and left of me, who don't disrespect who don't respect number one, authority. So I knew then we need some cameras in this classroom so that as a classroom teacher, I could call Mr. and Mrs. Moore, Mrs. and Mrs. Hatcher and say, well, I need you to come back down to a parent-teacher conference. But at the start of this conference, I've got a nice CD or video I need to put into this projectors so you can see what your child is doing while you're at work. And that just like we have cameras in the police cars, body cameras now on the police officers. It's time for us to put cameras in classrooms. And I'm not going to say it's not time for us to have our school officials, sad but true, wearing ballistic vests, because the school environment is just as vulnerable as we've got report and incident and record to show us that now a classroom teacher has to be in fear for his or her life going to work. So I think we need cameras in the classroom to protect our children, to protect our school officials, our classroom teachers. No teacher should have to go to work worrying about whether they're going to get stabbed, shot, or assaulted to any degree. But at the same time, when you send your child off to school, when you drop them off or you see them off on that school bus, you're under the belief that the school system is going to take well care of your child for those 5 to 8 hours that they are away from you. I feel for Mr. Hatcher and all the other parents that are out there dealing with situations like this. But let's just think for 1 second. How many incidents or accidents have gone undetected because people have covered things up and kept things behind the scenes and haven't shared it with us? Or with so many young people, in the case of Aaron, are not in a position where they can say a word about it. It's happening. And in my mind, I'm going to tone it down here and say this. I really believe, I don't know, I'm just thinking, because I'm human, that this kid, Aaron, was just miserable, just awfully miserable on a day-to-day basis, going to an environment that was just complete torture on top of already his current physical and mental condition.
And he
was being tortured. Absolutely. I'll stop there because we've got more of this show to talk about. I'm Commissioner Nesbitt from Rockdale County. I'm fired up about taking care of my people and doing what we can and make sure that there's not another Aaron Hatcher that exists anywhere.
Well, and I want to speak just to really just piggyback on this, because what's really appalling to me, and anybody that's listening, call me, email me, tweet me, whatever. This is the issue that I have with this. If this, and again, if this had happened to a German Shepherd, that teacher would be in prison, which is so appalling to me. If I stake my German Shepherd to a tree outside, I will go to jail. You know what I mean? And nobody's going to talk about the immunity as an owner, or as an owner, look, he was being aggressive with my toddler, so I staked him up outside. That has always been an issue, but I know the show is about rising.
So we're not talking about a German Shepherd. We're talking about a child.
A human. Absolutely. We're talking about a person. We're talking about Aaron Hatcher and the Aaron Hatchers that are out there. But a bigger issue, and again, part of the global part of this show, what we're really talking about, we are talking about adults in position either of authority or guardianship, adults that are taking advantage of vulnerable children. That's like the bottom line of it. No matter what you say, when we talk about Aaron Hatcher, and I know Dr. Johnnetta McSwain this is really her story. So I'm going to give her an opportunity to go ahead and get your tissues out. No, seriously, like go ahead and get out your tissues, because I want her to talk about her particular story, and even down to the school situation, all of those, because it all ties in. Dr. McSwain.
Well, thank you. And it's wow, what a set on a good Saturday morning. I'm Dr. Johnnetta McSwain, and just listening to you, Mr. Hatcher, just makes my body feel a certain way. I too was a victim of child sexual abuse. Not only child sexual abuse, but abuse alone, physical abuse, mentally abuse. And in my situation, I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, in the 70s. And back in my community, you didn't tell what went on in your mama's house. You just didn't do it. And we grew up in the church. And in the South, when you went to church at least 5 days out of 7. So a lot of things that happened in my grandmama's house when my grandmama went to church, or my mother was gone off for sometimes a month at a time without knowing where she was. And I, my sister, and my male cousin was left alone at my grandmother's house with 3 uncles. And these 3 uncles would literally chase us down one by one through the house, and just rip our clothes off. And remember, we was 5. My boy cousin and I was 5, and my sister was 6. And would sit us in 3 chairs lined up. And his TV room was the living room. And I remember being in the middle and being tied up, naked as a little girl. You're just 5 years old. And these horrific things are happening to you. You're being penetrated vaginally, anally, ejaculation. And it was horrific. I think, but the most horrific thing for me was not being able to tell anybody, holding that secret, because it's still a secret today. It's still it's silent, it's hushed upon. And for me, I guess to watch my little boy cousin, just scream and cry. My sister, she was a fighter. I would watch her fight, and she would get beat and punched and choked until she passed out. And I was the little girl who sat in the middle, and I would imagine I was Wonder Woman. So I had somewhere to go. I would imagine that I was in my visible plane, and that literally saved my life, for me being able to cope with what was happening to my body at that time. But not only that part that happened to me, but the abuse part, the sitting in the closet sometimes for a day with no food, nothing to drink, just because I wasn't wanted, just because you're ugly. Nobody wants you. And then there were days my uncles would boil a big pot of hot dogs and make us eat until we throw up. And then there was those cold winter mornings in Birmingham, Alabama, that I would pee in the bed, and the covers would be yanked off of me and stitching cords across my back, dragged out the bed by my feet. My cousin and I, stripped down of all our clothes, and sit on the porch in the cold winter. And we would have to sit out there. And I remember being so cold that you couldn't even feel your hands and your toes. And again, I went to my Wonder Woman plane. But I'm saying all that to say, on top of that, and not having a parent, that was involved in your life. My mother was a chronic alcoholic. She would come every now and then and just wanting to say, Mama, somebody's hurting me, but I couldn't. I went to school with syphilis. My vagina was so raw. I remember being a little girl. I remember walking to school and just having discharge. I remember that like it was yesterday. And what I remember the most is my sister with her neck swollen and her eyes black. And yet there was not one teacher that said something is wrong with those little kids. Somebody is hurting them. And I know if somebody would have asked me, if some teacher or somebody said, hey, I know that I would have told somebody, because a little child 5 years old does not know how to say something is wrong with them. And I remember that. I remember walking to school with a hole in my foot, with a piece of sheet tied around my foot and a piece of bacon, because that's what grandmama them did back in those days. You know, my arm burned from plastic dripping on my arm. I remember all those times, and yet still, not even the neighbors that sat in the window said something is wrong with those little kids. Not even the church members. So again, it is real, and that was the 70s, and it still exists today. So, Mr. Hatcher, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you, and one of the reasons why I get up every day, Mr. Hatcher, is to go to the schools. I've been to schools all over the world. I've been in meetings and on panels. I've been in trainings as far as back as Head Start, because they'll call me in to say, train us on the signs. There were signs, Mr. Hatcher. There were signs. There are signs. There are red flags. And so as my story goes on, I began to start a lifestyle of self-destruction, because that's what abuse does to you. It builds you up with hate and anger. Why me? Who loves me? So you can imagine my sister, who I told you about, and my boy cousin, who went on to crack cocaine, who went on to sexual identity, who went on to prison for 13 years, to murder, to HIV. My sister shot 6 times, ribs broken, paranoid schizophrenia today. So again, I know the adverse effects of what abuse does to you. And so I'm saying, to sum up right quick before we go around, because I know this is not all about me, but out of us three, my sister, my male cousin, I'm the only one that can sit before you in a sound mind. Can you imagine going to Birmingham, Alabama, preparing yourself to see your only sister, is 11 months older than you, laying under dog houses, in the park on the ground, 80 pounds, no teeth, no hair? Can you imagine your phone ringing at 4 o'clock in the morning and somebody said, turn the news on, and you see your sister shot in an ambulance? You can't even imagine the times where I go to the mental ward and she's in a straitjacket because she cannot live. She cannot deal with the pain of the abuse. And she's 47 years old. So again, this is real, and it's not going anywhere until people like you and all us in this room, everybody out here on Facebook who's watching this, who hears my voice. When you hear people say, I can't believe that happened, I didn't know that was happening. Open our eyes, am I right? Open your eyes. Am I right, Mr. Hatch? Open your eyes.
Well, I think that this whole presentation, I think for a lot of people who are watching and may not understand that, whereas you yourself may not have been impacted or affected by this, believe it or not, I can guarantee you, if you've got a circle of 5 to 10 people, somebody in your circle, someone you know has been impacted by some of these type scenarios that she just described. And one of the things we know in the African-American culture, that we have a history of keeping things swept up under the rug. And we take certain things in our lives and lifestyles to the grave.
Yes, we do.
What we're really saying this morning is advocating on behalf of our young people in our communities, particularly in our schools, also in our churches, because you also understand that a lot of these things are happening in the church environment too, on a church campus and on church trips and on church outings. And there are some folks that are doing some things that they should not be doing in terms of abuse or all those other things. But certainly in our school system is the widest or the broadest area that these things are happening. But here's the other part. We hope that somebody is listening and watching to this broadcast will be blessed to the point of being able to open up and no longer allow it to be a secret and tell that story. And let me say this, because Dr. McSwain is not throwing a pity party here this morning.
Absolutely.
She's pushed past all of the pain, and
I
she's
feel-
telling her personal
yeah.
story as an opportunity to be a blessing to someone, just like what Mr. Hatcher,
Yes.
he's not throwing a pity party.
Right.
He has to go through life day in and day out and function with his current children, his current lifestyle, and he is carrying a blood-stained banner
Absolutely.
Yes.
for Aaron, for Dr. McSwain,
Absolutely.
all of these other people. So what we're doing this morning, we're saying, let's come together as a community. Let's be aware. Let's be alert. Let's be open-minded. And as a culture of people, let's also not be so shallow-minded that we don't share these things, because believe it or not, whereas they may not be quite happening quite the same way she described,
Absolutely.
they're still happening in different kind of ways. Because as modern time continues to advance, technology continues to advance,
Absolutely.
abuse changes its course.
Yes,
it
it
changes
does.
its look. It changes its demographic. So it's still happening
Yes.
in different kinds of ways.
Absolutely.
Parental involvement, making sure that we know the people who are involved with our children,
Absolutely.
make sure that we know how to have good dialogue and communicate with our family members. Not that you're seeking or searching for bad news or
Right.
discover bad things, but having good interaction with your children. And for those children, in Mr. Hatcher's case, who can't talk, who can't speak, who can't articulate or send a sign or a signal, here's what parents got to do. They have got to be Johnny on the spot.
Yeah.
They've got to be superly involved. And for those people who are out there in the world, let me say this too before I wrap this up. If you have been given the authority to govern over someone's life, whether it's a child, an infant, a toddler, a teen, a preteen, or whether it's an elderly person inside a nursing home,
Mhm.
we are going to hold you accountable.
Absolutely.
If you're a police officer, if you're a school teacher, if you're a pastor at the church, if you're the guy at the neighborhood grocery store, we, the people, are going to hold you accountable. If you are a parent, if you're the uncle, the big brother, the big sister, we're going to hold you accountable. So we've got to band together and begin the community dialogue and make sure that we teach children not to be paranoid, because you should enjoy your childhood as much as you can. But we have to teach our children to be smart, to be proactive, and to be alert. And life is different because the devil is busy. But at the end of the day, I still believe that the devil is a lie.
And,
you know-
all of those are go ahead, Mr. Hatcher.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, and with even like, I don't know a lot of people's belief, but my belief is through Christ. And to me, it's like a modern day Jesus Christ with my son. And it was a sacrifice spiritually so that I could go out. And then the enemy came to to bring a heart attack. I could pass that. Open heart surgery. I can pass that. And still today, I sit here in pain physically, but still there's a power in me to stand for all these people because I'm fearless now. We're going through this case when I told them that I'm not concerned about this case, you all do what you all need to do. I'm concerned about these other kids and all these other people that are being abused, that can't talk. And I started this when I was asleep. I got this message from God, and God said, I need you to say this because, see, the cameras was going in a different direction. It was going in this teacher, that teacher, this teacher. And God said, no, say it like this, Ron. Tell them, House of Representatives, the senators, all of them, tell them you need cameras in the classroom to protect the students from being abused and the teachers for being accused. And he said, I want you to go out. This was between my death, because they kill you when you have open heart surgery. So I'm sitting there dead, and I could see my childhood rolling back, and I heard this voice. He said, you have to do this. You have to go out and be fearless because I'm within you. Nobody's not going to like you. They're not going to help you. Churches turned away from me. They said that they couldn't help. They couldn't give funding to your organization because they're getting funding from the government. So God said, you do this. You do this documentary. You do this on, you'll get it done. And I didn't say anything because it's not about me. I gave up singing. I gave up all that stuff that people enjoy. Oh, Ron, you're a beautiful singer. Okay, forget that. It's about these kids and these people that are being abused. It's about people can abuse you and go to and be free. And that's not the way God wants it. So I started that Aaron Hatchers, they can't talk, but we can. And that's why I'm pushing this, even through my pain, physically. I'm hurting. My chest still hurts. And with the stress and all of that, but it's something in me that makes me go. You see me this way. You see me, my mom is like, you need to slow down. No, when you tell me I need to slow down, I need to go harder. And that's where I stand today. And I thank you for this program because I'm telling you, people won't listen to me. They say, oh yeah, oh man. No, help me help them. And that's why I stopped going to church right now. Because my church, they ask me, what church you go to? You standing in it. There's a steeple up there at the top, and you have all these people out here, and this is where you're standing in my church. My church is not to stand there and tell you what to do. My church is to stand there and tell you what to do for the people.
Mr. Hatcher.
Yes.
I want to say to you something that I want you to remember, okay?
Yes.
I also had an epiphany when I turned 30. When I woke up at 30 years old in Birmingham, Alabama, I had two babies, two baby daddies. I had been on Section 8. I had been in the food stamp line, the welfare line, the whole line, you name it. I had did it all. I'm just being real to you. I was out of control. But when I woke up and realized that I was a generational cycle, that I was carrying that generational curse on to my two sons to continue the cycles of prison and drugs, and I had a felony. I had been stealing. I started stealing at 12 years old just to get panties. So when people tell me you don't understand, you can't tell me. Yeah. I too live every day with the pain of what happened to me. I'm 46 years old and I can remember it just like it was yesterday. I can smell those two hands on top of me. I can still feel them on my chest as a little girl with asthma. So let me just say to you is that when I had my epiphany, at 30 years old, I packed my house up. I grabbed my two baby boys, 5 and 12. I got the biggest truck that you can find in Birmingham, Alabama, and I hit I-20. And that was 14 years ago last week that I left Alabama and I came here. And the only goal that I had at that time was to save my two baby boys. I didn't want them to be in jail, in prison, on drugs, and most never to abuse or sexually molest their children or anybody else for that matter of fact. But what I'm saying in all is when I got here, I had a GED, I had a 10th grade education. And today, 14 years, I've gotten 3 degrees. I've had to learn how to read on a college level. I've been told you can't be a professor, you can't be a doctor, you can't get a pardon. You're done. You're going to be in jail or dead. But today, this is my book I've written, Rising Above the Scars, sold 5,000, published it, but they said I couldn't write. So what I'm saying to you is everybody is not going to walk your journey. Everybody is going to say, ain't you tired? Why don't you go sit down? I know how it is to eat oodle noodles, baby. You understand me? My husband packed up and left 4 years ago and took everything. But let me say what this happened to me. Is when you are called, when you're an advocate, when you are passionate, when you know that this is what you got to do, you got to forsake all, baby. You got to go on that mountain of Sinai like Moses did and wait on your burning bush. And that right there is what you call passion. And if you don't have it, you can't do this. So every day that you wake up, God gave you another chance to speak for all the big and little hatchers. I go all over the world, Japan, where there's no foster care. St. Vincent, where I cut the first line, to just having a helpline. They have no helpline. I just got a phone call from Dominica where the men in Dominica are raping the little boys.
Yeah.
The men.
It's horrible there.
It's horrific. These women stood on the side of the roads and they would cry and wrote me letters. They couldn't even speak because they was afraid of being killed.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is this is not going away. And thank you.
Right.
The churches don't want to talk about it.
No.
You know, everybody wants you to go pray about it. Just go pray about it. It doesn't go away. Abuse and pain doesn't go away. I applaud you. I applaud you, Mr. Hatcher, because even though I haven't had a heart attack, but my heart has been broken. And every time when I go to these schools and see these 14 and 15-year-old little girls, what you were saying, write me letters, I'm pregnant, my mama boyfriend is on top of me, they don't have nowhere to stay. A 14-year-old girl pregnant by a 45-year-old man is pimping her on the street.
Tell them how they can get in touch with you, Doc.
How you can get in touch with me? I'm on Facebook. I'm Johnnetta McSwain. You can email me at Johnnetta McSwain. LeTonya send you.
We're gonna make sure you know where to find
for the book. You can watch the documentary, which I won an Emmy for having the best documentary called The Road Beyond Abuse with Jane Fonda. And we're gonna start shooting the movie. So Rising Above the Scar is going to the big screen.
As we wrap up, I know that Attorney Moore about to wrap us up. We're running out of time here. Let me just say this. The best way to get Commissioner Nesbitt in Rockdale County is 770-624-9446. Text is best. Don't call me because this phone is ringing all the time. Text is best. 770-624-9446. So glad to be honored to be on this program with all of you wonderful people.
Thank you.
And I want to give one true parting thought. And I really want to encourage everyone that's listening, everyone that's viewing, even those of you that go back and watch the replay, because this is only the beginning. And one thing I want to say definitely to you, Mr. Hatcher, is that when God gives you a vision, he'll always give you the provision. And lots of times human nature is always, well, I'm going to go to the people, quote unquote, people that I think will help me. But what I've learned even in my own life is a lot of times God will make those folks hostile. You know, when God gave Moses the mandate to take the people out of Israel, he said, Pharaoh ain't gonna make it easy.
That's right.
But that's who he needed. That's the buy-in that he needed to get the Israelites on their journey.
Absolutely.
So what am I saying? What I'm saying is you're exactly in the right place.
Absolutely.
Keep pushing. You certainly have 3 advocates here. Keep me posted personally on what's going on. If we can ever be of any service to you, whether it's giving us a platform here at Opulence TV, that's exactly what our platform is about. It's about people like you. Check us out. Again, this is Real Perspectives. This has been Rising Above the Scars. Thank you to Dr. Johnnetta McSwain. Thank you to Commissioner, Rockdale County Commissioner Oz Nesbitt.
Your next chairman.
Yes.
And I'm your host of Real Perspectives, LeTonya Moore. Check me out, www.LeTonyaMoore.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at LeTonya Moore. I'm on Facebook as well, like my Facebook page. Until next time, Real Perspectives, we seek real people with real issues and real solutions from real perspectives.